Hello students. Today we are going to discuss the concept of deemed owner in detail. Beside the legal owner, section 27 provides that the following persons are to be treated as deemed owner of the house property for the purpose of charging tax on annual value under the head income from house property. So these are the considered as a deemed owner. Deemed owner means even though they are not the legal owner of the property, then also as per income tax law, they will be considered as owner of the property. First one, transfer to spouse or minor child. If individual transfer a house property without adequate consideration to his or her spouse or his or her minor child, the transferor is deemed as owner of the property. This rule is however not applicable if an individual transfer a house property to his or her spouse under an agreement to live apart or to his or her minor married daughter. So this condition is not applicable in this case if they are decided to live apart, or if he has transferred the property to minor married daughter, then in that case concept is not applicable. Let us discuss understand the concept in a better way by giving some example. An individual owns a house property on 1st April 2019. Now it may be 2020, 2021. You can write down 21 also. He transferred the property without any consideration to his wife. Now he is transferring the property without consideration. A rental income is received by Mrs. X after April 1, 2019. However, for the purpose of charging tax on rental income, X will be deemed as owner of the property. Consequently, income would be taxable in the hands of X. So, in which hand it is taxable? It is taxable in the hands of Mr. X because Mr. X is considered as deemed as owner because he has transferred this property to his wife without adequate consideration. So whatever rental income his wife is getting, it is taxable under in the hands of Mr. X, not in the hands of Mrs. X, because Mr. X is deemed as owner of the property and not Mrs. X. Now Y gift rupees 10 lakh to Mrs. Y, and Mrs. Y purchase a house property out of the gifted money. In this case, the aforesaid provisions are not applicable as Y transferred a sum of money to his wife who has purchased a property out of the gifted amount. He has not transferred the property. Consequently, Y will not be deemed as owner of the property. In such case, income of the property would be computed in the hands of Mrs. Y as she is the owner of the property, and the income so calculated will be included in the income of Y under the provision of section 64 subsection 1. Now here this is little bit different. In this case, Y gift 10 lakh to Mrs. Y, and from that Mrs. Y has purchased a house property. In this case, Y has transferred a sum of money to his wife, and out of that money she has purchased a house property. Consequently, Y will not be deemed as owner of the property. Y is not treated as a deemed as owner of the property. In such case, income of the property would be computed in the hands of Mrs. X as he is the owner of the property, and income so calculated will be included in the income of Y under clubbing provision. That means obviously whatever income that Mrs. Y is getting, it will be added into the income of Y, but it will be added under the provision of section 64 subsection 1, that is clubbing provision. But right now it is not taxable, it is not considered. Now our concept is what, whether Mr. Y will be considered as deemed owner or not. So in this case Mr. Y is not considered as deemed owner. So now next one, holder of impartible estate. The holder of impartible estate is deemed as owner of the property. Let us understand this one with one example. X is one of the ex rulers of a former princely state. He has divided all his property amongst three sons. However, he could not transfer a building which is occupied by a temple and which is given as per family convention to his eldest son. All the three brothers, along with other family members, have right to enjoy the benefits of the property. Now, this is the case where they are transferring all the properties except one building which is occupied by a temple. But as per the family convention, it is given to the eldest son. Now, here property is given to the eldest son and it cannot be divided among the three brothers as per the family convention. The eldest son is not beneficial owner of the property because he is not the beneficial owner of the property. In other words, he holds the property as a trustee on behalf of his younger brothers. So for this purpose of section 22, the eldest son as holder of the impartible estate is deemed as owner of the property. In this case, who is the considered as deemed as owner? Eldest son will be considered as a deemed owner even though he is not the beneficial owner under section 22. All are enjoying the benefits, but then also who is deemed as owner? Mr. the eldest son considered as deemed as owner. Now property held by a cooperative by a member of a cooperative society, a company or AOP. A member of cooperative society, company or other association of person to whom a building or part thereof is allotted or leased under the house building scheme of the society, company or association is treated as deemed owner of such property. Now let us understand with one example. A flat is allotted by a cooperative group housing society to X. Now one of its member, who is X? One of the member of the cooperative housing society under a housing building scheme of the society. In this case, X is deemed as owner of the property for the purpose of section 22. Although under the general law of the property is owned by the cooperative society, it is the normally property. In this case, property is owned by cooperative society, but who is considered as the owner, deemed as owner? Here Mr. X is considered as deemed owner because it is transferred by a cooperative society, not transfer, it is given by cooperative society under the housing building scheme to X, to one of its, who is a one of its member of the society. So that is why Mr. X will be considered as deemed owner. Now next one, a person who has acquired a property under a power of attorney transaction. If a person has if a person has acquired a property under a power of attorney transaction by satisfying the conditions of section 53 subsection A of the Transfer of Property Act, he is deemed as owner of the property although he may not be registered owner of the property. But there are certain conditions that should be satisfied under section 53A. First one, there is an agreement in writing between purchaser and seller. That means there should be a written agreement between purchaser and seller. The purchaser has paid the consideration or he is ready to pay the consideration. Then also this is considered 53A is applicable. The purchaser has taken the possession of the property. If these all three conditions are satisfied, then 53A is applicable. Now, if the aforesaid three conditions are satisfied, the purchaser becomes the deemed owner of the property for the purpose of income tax, even if he is not the registered owner of the property. He is not the registered owner, but he has satisfied all the condition mentioned under section 53A. That means what? There is a written agreement between purchaser and seller. Purchaser is ready to pay the consideration, and the purchaser has taken the possession of the property. These all three conditions has satisfied by the purchaser. In that case, 53A is satisfied. So that is why purchaser will be considered as the deemed owner. Let us understand with one example. Now X enters into a written agreement to purchaser of a property from Y for rupees 25 lakh. He has paid the consideration and taken the possession of the property. Now X enters into a written agreement to purchaser a property from Y for rupees 25 lakh. Now in this case, the sale deed is yet to be registered. That means sale deed it is not registered. He becomes deemed owner of the property for the purpose of paying tax on a rental income, although he is not the registered owner of the property. So here, who is the deemed as owner? X enters into a written agreement to purchase a property from Y. Means X is a purchaser, but this agreement has not registered yet. Then also X will be considered as deemed owner because all the conditions under section 53A is satisfied. That means there is a agreement between purchaser and seller. Then second one, property possession will is taken by the purchaser, and third one, consideration is already paid. So that is why all the three conditions are satisfied. So that is why we can say that X is a deemed owner of the property. Now last one, a person who has acquired a right in a building under section 269 UAF. If a person acquires a right in a building by virtue of a transaction which is referred to in section 269 UAF, then he is deemed as owner of the property. Broadly speaking, section 269 UAF covers the case of taking property on lease for a long term of not less than 12 years, whether fixed originally or there is a provision for extension of term and the agreement period is not less than 12 years. These provisions of deemed ownership does not cover any right by way of lease from month to month or for a period not exceeding 1 year. Let us understand with some example so you will get better understanding. X owns a property. It is given on a lease for a period of 12 years to Y. Now lease rent being 40,000 per month, as the period of lease is not less than 12 years. Y becomes deemed owner of the property. Means what? X is the owner of the property. He has given property to Y for a lease period of 12 years. Means lease period is not less than 12 years. That means what? In this case, Y becomes the deemed owner of the property. This is the first case. Now second case, A owns a property. It is given on a lease for a period of 6 years. Here it is given on a 6 years to B. Lease rent being 20,000 per month. Now B has a right to get a renewal of lease for further period of 6 years after the expiry of lease. In this case, the aggregate period of lease is not less than 12 years. Therefore, in this case also, B is deemed as owner of the property. If you see in this case also, first it is given on a 6-year lease, and then on again period is extended for the 6 year, because it is further stated that B has a right to get renewal of lease for further period of 6 years after the expiry of the lease. So B has this right that after the expiry of the 6 year, he can further extend for the further 6 years. That means 6 plus 6, 12 years. So that is why it is not less than 12 years. So that is why Mr. B will be considered as deemed owner. Now last one, C owns a property. It is given to on a lease to D for a period of 1 month. Rent being 10,000. D has a right to get renewal of the lease subject to condition that every time it will be renewed only for a period of 1 month, and such renewal is possible with mutual consent till 2050. That means it is more than 12 years. In this case, aggregate period of lease is more than 12 years, but D will not become deemed owner of the property. The property is given on a lease from month to month basis. Means what is the special in this case? In this case, C has given property to D, and D has a right on a only monthly basis, and D has a right that it can be extended up to 2050, but it is extended on the mutual consent of both the person. And that is why here, what is a rule under 269 UA? If you are want to extend, it should not be extend on month to month basis or for a period not exceeding 1 year. So here it is extended on month to month basis or less than 1 year. That means what? In this case, D is not considered as deemed owner of the property. So this is all about last point. So if you extend lease for a period of 12 years or lease is of 12 years, then the person to whom you have given the property is considered as deemed owner. But if you are giving property on month to month basis or for a period not exceeding 1 year basis, then in that case, the person to whom you are giving property on a lease is not considered as deemed owner. So these three example you make you better understanding about 269 UA. So that's all about deemed ownership. Now there is one more point: property should not be occupied by the owner of his business, own business or profession. Just I want to throw some light on this point. When property should not be, when you can say that property is, this is the third conditions under section 22, the property should not be used for the business purpose. So there are certain examples, because if it is used for business purpose, then whatever income arises from it, it is not chargeable under the head income from house property. Now let us discuss three example related to this. X owns a property. He uses the property as his office, factory, go down. As per the properties, as the property is used for the purpose of carrying on his business or profession, nothing is taxable under section 22. So this is the first one, because he is using the property for the purpose of his business. So that is why it is not taxable under the head income from house property. Now second one, X Limited is manufacturing company. The factory of the company is situated in Andhra Pradesh. Within the factory campus, there is a residential colony having 80 quarters for workers. These quarters are given to workers for residential purpose. A nominal rent of rupees 100 per month is recovered from the workers. As the purpose of letting out of the residential quarter is to run the business smoothly, the residential quarters will be treated as house property used by the assessee for the purpose of its business. Accordingly, annual value thereof is not chargeable under section 22, and recovery of the rent 100 per month from the worker will be taken as business receipt. So this is another example. Here person is having 80 quarters, is given to workers for a residential purpose, and a nominal rent of 100 is collected from the workers. Now why this property is given on a rental basis? To run the business smoothly. So here whatever rent they are getting from the building is not considered as a income from house property, it is considered as income from business or profession. That means what? Because why he has given this? Because his purpose is very simple. He wants to run his business smoothly, so we can say that property used for the business purpose. So that is why it is not taxable under the head income from house property. Now next one, Y Limited makes, last one, Y Limited makes available a few rooms in its factory on a nominal rent to the government for locating a branch of nationalized bank, post office and central excise office for carrying on its business efficiently and smoothly. Nothing is taxable under section 22. Rent collected being incidental to the business of Y Limited is assessable as business income under section 28. Now in this case also, Y Limited has given a factory, some part of the factory for to government for running like nationalized bank or post office or central excise office, for carrying out business efficiently and smoothly. So in that case also, nothing is taxable under section 22, and the rent collected being incidental to his business is taxable as a business receipt and not as a income from house property. So this is all about property. If it is used for a business purpose, then nothing would be chargeable under the head income from house property.